Hello and welcome to the March 2024 regular school board meeting of the Appoquinimink School Board. I'm Michelle Wall. Nice to see all of you tonight in the room and those of you who are joining us on Zoom. The board went into executive session at 5:30 at the motion of Ms. DeWitt and the second of Ms. Graham to discuss legal and personnel matters. We are going to start our meeting tonight like we start all of our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dr. Burrows, are there any agenda adjustments?
There are three adjustments under Item 11A, Personnel Report. Two items are going to be pulled off for board action and voted on separately. And then under established meeting dates, the next board meeting will be on March the 21st, which we're hosting a candidate forum for people running for school board.
That was two. Is there one more?
Well,
the two items.
Yeah,
okay.
sorry.
That's all right. Thank you very much. Moving on in our agenda, we're going to start with special recognitions. The order of special recognition starts with the recognition of our all-state bands, and that's going to be followed by middle school sports. I see we have a plethora of really excited families in our audience. So once the band recognitions are over, if you choose to stay for the whole entire meeting, you are more than welcome. But after your child is recognized, if you plan to leave, we're going to let then some of the basketball parents that are in the hallway kind of fill in. So a little maneuvering logistics. And additionally, I always like parents to be able to get any of the photos you like to get. But there also, Danielle is here with the district, and there will be a link that will have all the photos too. So please try to get your photos, but I know sometimes it's hard from whatever angle you are in the room. So just as a parent myself, I like to make sure people are aware how you capture your child's recognitions. Okay, so we're going to start with All-State Band with Ms. Sebastiano and Dr. Burrows.
School district, and we are celebrating our all-state jazz band, all-state band, and all-state orchestra students in the district this evening. Our students auditioned in January, and we are now celebrating those students who were accepted into these prestigious ensembles. While in all-state, students participate in rehearsals with the other all-state musicians from around the state, and then they conclude that experience with a concert. The All-State Jazz Band concert was in February. All-State Orchestra was just this past weekend, but you can still see the All-State Band this month on Saturday, the 23rd. Just reach out to any of our instrumental teachers that will be presenting tonight for more information. I'm gonna get us started with the students from Alfred G. Waters, and presenting for them is their band teacher, Mr. Danny Pinheiro.
Good evening, everyone. So for band, we have Omisha Royale. For orchestra, we have Manuha Chidipolu. Gaurika Goel. And Leonard Dong, who is not present tonight.
And then up next, we have all-state band students from Cantwell's Bridge Middle School, presented by their band teacher, Miss Amanda Ostrowski.
The following students who made All-State Band this year: Oliver Hemphill, Analia Lemus, and Matai Rouse.
And next up are band students from Everett Meredith Middle School. Their band teacher wasn't able to be present, but we have an assistant principal subbing as a band teacher tonight, Dan Sullivan.
For Meredith Middle, we have Jonah Carrington, who is not present tonight, and Braden Stafford.
Next up, we have a band student from Reading Middle School, presented by their band teacher, Jeff Leaker.
From Lois L. Reading Middle School, we have Brianna Reb on trombone.
And next up, Appoquinimink High School band and orchestra students, presented by the band teacher, Mr. Ryan Mosley.
Thank you. So first up, we have Ethan Rich, first chair, Barry saxophone for junior band. Next up on trumpet for senior band, Matthew McMahon. And on behalf of Haley Graham, we have Violet Sullivan for orchestra.
And next up, we have some band and orchestra students from Middletown High School, presented by band director, Mr. Chris Parks.
We have 4 students representing Middletown High School from the Middletown Band Program. First up, we have Elise Ziegler, who will be playing flute in the junior band. We have Matthew Achenchi, who will be playing trumpet in the senior band. Jason Byrne, who played trumpet in the jazz band in the concert last month. And Eliana Wang, who actually won the mallet audition, first year mallet player in the whole state, who's participating in the band next week and participated in the orchestra last week.
Okay, and for orchestra, we had Daniel Longfellow on cello, but he could not be here tonight.
And forgive me, that was Miss Nicole Polk, orchestra teacher at Middletown High School as well. Yeah, why not? And then last but not least, band and orchestra students from Odessa High School and presented by Mr. John Gordon, orchestra teacher.
I'm very pleased to represent Odessa High School, and on behalf of Brian Enline, who can't be here because he's rehearsing, he's doing the job, I have Gabe Spinizzola on senior band and jazz band. Also in senior band, but also selected as the orchestra trombone, Enoch Timmons. We have Elisa Kouameni for orchestra as a violist. We have Brandon Pierce for cello in orchestra, all-state orchestra. And not able to join us tonight, Min Vu, also for orchestra, cello.
And if I can just be a little indulgent and ask for one last round of applause for all of these fantastic musicians.
We are going to move on in our recognition to middle school sports, and we are going to start with basketball from Everett Meredith Middle School, girls basketball.
Am I allowed to sneak in real quick? You want to do something? Okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening. All right, good evening, everyone. At this time, we're going to honor our middle school district champions for the 23-24 school year. Before we do that, I just wanted to give a quick recap of this season. This was our third year offering middle school basketball, and this was the first season that our teams got the opportunity to play teams outside of our district. So each school had the opportunity to play 10 to 12 games this season, and it was very nice to see our teams go out and compete, display great sportsmanship, and see the amount of growth they've had over these past 3 years. We had the opportunity to participate in the Providence Creek Academy tournament, where 4 of our teams won championships. 2 teams came in second, 2 teams came in third. But Reading boys won the boys B Cup, and Meredith boys won the boys A Cup, and AG Waters won the girls B Cup, and Meredith won the girls A Cup. So all of our teams have been very successful. So we want to thank the district for their continued support of middle school sports, and also a huge shout out to our building administrators, athletic directors, and coaches for the time that they put in to run these programs for our students. So at this time, I'm going to introduce Benedetta Reiser. She's the AD at Meredith Middle School, and she's going to introduce our district champions, Meredith Middle.
Thank you for having me. I would like to introduce our Everett Meredith girls basketball coach, who is led by Coach Shola Cook. Our first team member is number 22, Ava Bostic. Next, we have number 3, Kara Diffendahl. Harmony Dyches Patterson was unable to make it today. We next have number 5, Callie Alizar. Emily Hunter was unable to make it tonight. Also, Brinley Kelly was unable to make it tonight, as well as Lily Montgomery. Next, we have number 14, Camille Phillips. Next, we have number 2, Giada Ramos. Next, we have number 10, Sophia Ramos. Next, we have number 30, Ayana Rhodes. Mira Solaria was unable to make it tonight, as well as Alana Small. Next, we have number 1, Taylor Tucker.
Just want to say they are the 3-time champions of the district. And some of these girls have been on the team all 3 years, and they also have been undefeated in their stint since they started playing. Congratulations.
The next recognition will be the Cantwell's Bridge boys basketball team.
First, I want to introduce my assistant coach, Coach Donovan Earl. And our first player that we have is Raheem Banks. Our next person we have that's not here is one of our team managers, Taylor Chambers. The next manager we have is Jace Harris. Next up we have Gavin Henson. Next we have Donovan Jones Milton. Next we have AJ Joyner. Next we have Kevin Corner. Next up we have Jalen Littlejohn. Next we have Willie McLeod. Our last manager that we have that's not here is Alexander Nichols. Next we have AJ Asanuga. Next we have Jalen Price. Next up we have James Swiggett. Next up we have Loki Van Norden. And our last player that's not here is Christian Warner.
And this is Coach Eddie Chavis. And Cantwell's is a repeat champion, so this is their second championship in a row. Back to back. Great job.
And our last recognition of the evening is for the Delaware Assistant Principal of the Year, and I'm going to have Dr. Lynn Streets present.
Good evening. I am Lynn Streets. I'm the principal of Cantwell's Bridge Middle School. I would like to introduce Miss Kellen Marmolejo. She... Now you see why I asked the boys to stay. So everybody at Cantwell's loves Kellen Marmolejo, loves Mrs. Marmolejo. I have the distinct honor of working alongside of her every single day. And, you know, when she was the founding assistant principal of Cantwell's Bridge Middle School, and when I came in last year, I learned very quickly that I wasn't going to teach her much. We were going to teach each other. And we lean on each other each day. We grow each other. And I'm so proud that she is the Assistant Principal of the Year for the state of Delaware. So congratulations. It is much deserved.
All right, thank you for those who are remaining for our meeting. That concludes our special recognition portion. The next agenda item section would be public comment, and we don't have any this evening. Moving on, we have the report section, and the first report is the school board candidate report. And that's me. Currently have 4 people filed for school board. Candace Justino, Timothy Johns, Brittany Mumford, and Norm Abrams. The board election is Tuesday, May 14th, 2024. The swearing in of the new board member will occur on Tuesday, June 11th, 2024. And the Appoquinimink School Board plans to hold a candidate forum on the 21st of March, starting at 7 p.m. Dr. Burrows, is there anything you would like to add to that announcement?
No, you covered it all. Thank you.
Moving on to the next report, I have the superintendent's report. Dr. Burrows.
Okay, I'm gonna keep this brief. But this month is National Social Workers Month. Actually, the 3rd through the 9th was National School Social Workers Week. The 13th is National Registered Dietitian Nutrition Day, and March 20th is World Behavior Analysis Day. We currently have filled 730 positions this year. Last year, we filled 851 in total. We are currently up from our September 30th count, 132 students and counting. And any questions or comments?
What does that bring our total enrollment to right now?
13,077 students.
Are there any further questions of the superintendent from this report?
Just one other thing, this Friday, we have an event that's unlike any other event any other district does for the benefits of our kids. It's a work-based learning fair. It's up at the 76ers field house.
Thank you. The next agenda item under reports is the referendum presentation. As you all know, or maybe don't know, I can tell you again, on April 23rd, the school district is going to referendum. Dr. Burrows is going to give the presentation tonight that we have been giving in the community through town halls, both in person and virtually. I would ask technology that when we post the board meeting that is recorded, that we list a specific timestamp for this so that people can jump right to this important part of the meeting should they wish to, and they're not able to join one of the town halls in person or virtually. It's easily accessible for all those who are interested. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone that came out tonight. I know for some of you, this is the first time you're going to hear this presentation. But for those that seriously is the first time you've heard this presentation, any questions or anything, feel free to reach out to us. More than glad to answer those. We do have a referendum on April 23rd. In this presentation, I'm going to go through an explanation of what a referendum is, the referendum cycle, the local revenue, our local revenue comparison to the rest of the districts in Newcastle County, our district by the numbers, what we're asking for on the capital side, what our request is on the operational side, what's at stake if we do not have a successful referendum, the impact to the homeowners' taxes and voting information, and then all the information that's available on the website. So Delaware, we're a little unique. We have the opportunity to go out to our public, our taxpayers, and ask for them to approve or reject an increase in our operational expenses, and if we have capital needs. There's two types of referendums. One being a capital side for building new buildings, renovation of existing buildings, expansions of existing buildings, and purchase of property. And then on the operational side, it's our current operation expenses tied to our day-to-day operations. Funding for such things as teachers, support staff, positions, programs, learning materials, and a much more extensive list will be later in this presentation. On the capital referendum side, we have to first, before we come to you to ask for your support, we first have to submit a certificate of necessity to the state. We went through this process. This is the third step in a 10-year plan for us on the capital side through planning. We submit a certificate of necessity to the state. They look at the certificate of necessity and determine if you have a need or not for that. This past cycle, or this past year, 9 other districts besides ourselves put in for a total of $1.5 billion. Only 4 districts were awarded any money for this as far as with need. We being the one that received the most money or has been given the most money in regards to this because of the needs that we have. Key is for the state, the reason why it's so important for the state to approve our certificate of necessity. In our district, they cover 77% of the cost on a 20-year bond, and then we pick up the other 23% on a 20-year bond. It's similar to your home mortgage. So you make payments on that for the next 20 years. On the operational side, there's a list of all the operational things and much more that's covered by our operational referendum. So the referendum cycle. So you see up there the expenditure line, which is in blue or purple, that kind of goes diagonal across it. And then you see the revenue line, which is in black, that goes straight across it. When we go off the referendum, the revenue's set. You may see a slight increase in that revenue, but the revenue is pretty set as far as that goes. When you see that, our expenses are below what our revenue is at point. So we have a surplus, and we know that. We plan for that because we know as we go out, our expenses are going to increase because one thing, costs go up. Secondly, we're in a unique position as a district because we're hiring 30 to 40 additional staff members each year to meet the growth that we have. There's employee raises, there's compensation and things like that. So eventually your expenditures outpace your revenue. So the surplus that we build up, you start to spend down on that, and eventually you're at a point where you have to go back out to referendum again. One of the key differences, one of the things we keep hearing is that you guys go to referendum every 3 to 4 years, and then other districts are going every 8 years. The difference in us and the other districts that you see is they're either staying stagnant in student enrollment or they're going down, decreasing or losing students in student enrollment. And so they're only dealing with the expense side of that on increased cost, while we're dealing with increased cost and the number of employees that we need to hire with increased employee cost. So this chart up here compares us, shows a comparison of us on the local revenue side compared to the rest of the county. You see up there our tax rate as compared to the rest of the county. Now, 3 of those districts, Brandywine, Colonial, and Red Clay, just passed referendums last month. So the tax rate up there reflects what their increase represents. So you can see we're at about $1.36, $1.37 if you round up on the tax rate. And the next closest is at $1.98. The key there is you look at the local revenue, we bring in about $37 million on our local revenue side. Christina, which is about 300 students more than we are, brings in $121 million. So you can kind of see the discrepancy when we're trying to compete. We're not bringing in the revenue the other districts are bringing in. Twofold, our tax rate is lower than any other, and we bring in less for those pennies than anyone else does. So you can see the local revenue side up there, what we spend per student, we're about $2,900. And then the next closest is Red Clay, which is about $7,000. So on the operating budget, this shows the total operating budgets of the districts. And you can see the per spending amount per student. We're just under $15,000 per student, where the next closest is Red Clay, which is at $17,275. So we're about about $2,200 more per student is the next closest. As a district, we're over 13,000 students, almost 2,000 staff members, 21 schools. In the last 5 years, we've grown 17%, almost 2,000 students in those 5 years. We are the fastest growing school district in the state, and at this point, we're the 3rd largest. As you saw on that chart, we're right on the heels of Christina, and we'll probably pass them in the next year or two. When we look at the Middletown, Odessa, Townsend area, as we plan for growth and we see what's coming, we use Will Mapco, who is a federally distinguished metropolitan planning group. And they look at areas and project growth as it's coming. So if you see on that chart, by 2025, we're going to be almost 90,000 residents in Middletown, Odessa, Townsend. In 2035, we're going to be almost 108,000 residents in Middletown, Odessa, Townsend. At that point, we're going to have more residents in Middletown, Odessa, Townsend than the city of Wilmington. And we continue to grow. Now, we hear if you guys would stop building schools, people would stop moving here. So as I mentioned, we have to go through the state to get a certificate of necessity. We have to show a need that we need these schools for the kids that are here. We're a reaction to growth. The county and the town are who approves building permits for developers to build, not the school district. So we're reacting to the growth, and that's our job. We have to have a seat. By federal law, we have to have a seat for every kid that comes into our district. So there's two asks in this referendum. We have a capital and an operational side. I'm going to keep mentioning this. So on the state covers 77% of the cost on a 20-year bond, and we as a local taxpayers pick up 23% of the cost. We're looking for on this a new middle and high school on the Summit campus and an elementary school on Green Giant Road on the piece of property that the town of Middletown gave us. All these buildings will open in the fall of 2028. We did ask for additional things that were not approved because the state were unable to fund those. One of those being an early childhood center on the Summit campus, a renovation replacement to Townsend Elementary School, and then expansion to the buildings on the Cedar Lane campus where we currently have modulars on two of the three buildings there. This is a rendering of what the Summit campus could look like someday. Crystal Run, which is at the bottom left there, is already on site. That opened this year. To the right side of that is the Early Childhood Center we did not get approved for, so that will not be part of this. But the middle and high school you see kind of center and a little left center, and all the amenities that go along with that are part of this ask. This is the piece of property that you see there in this kind of in the center of the picture. Up there to the left, the houses you see is the the St. Anne's neighborhood. This is the piece of property that was given to us by the town of Middletown. All that land's been annexed along with the farm that you see above it has been annexed into the town. And those are going to be about 1,100 to 1,400 homes that will be surrounding this.
So let me just point out again, this is about 30 acres. It was required to be set aside for the school district back when the St. Anne's community was first created. If we had to buy those 30 acres on today's market, that's about $3.6 million. So, thanks to the town, that we saved $3.6 million in costs. And so it's another way that we're trying to be thrifty and working with at least the town to try to save money for the school district.
Another thing too that's going to save us money, you see that road there is going to need some enhancements and improvements, which we knew it was going to need, and the developers are going to be part of those road improvements. If we build out there before that was established, we would have been responsible for all those road improvements. So that's our capital ask. On the operational side, which I will say we're at a crossroads as a district. I mentioned that the three districts to the north of us passed the referendums, they passed them for more than what we're asking for on the operational side. And they're already paying on average their teachers $5,000 more than what we're paying. It's imperative that we pass this referendum so we can at least be somewhat competitive in the market, as we are in a national teacher shortage at this point. School safety is at the forefront of parents' minds. We need to make sure that we offer the safest environment possible for our students. Operational costs due to growth. I mentioned we grow 300 to 400 students a year. Along with that comes additional costs that our revenue does not keep up pace with our revenue, and then maintaining student devices. The large portion of the ask in this operational referendum is for educator compensation. As we face this national crisis, about 36 of the 39.9 cents of this is going into this pot. It equates to about $10 million of our $11 million ask is going into our educator compensation. They're our most valuable resource. We realize that the great things that happen in our schools, the many awards that we receive as a district and as a community is because of the great work our staff's doing on a day-to-day basis in the classroom. School safety, this will allow us to continue to offer and the safest schools possible, but this is contingent on the state to continue to fund the safety grant that they're currently funding. Operational expenses associated with growth. As you grow, there's more materials are needed for the students and for the staff. And so this helps us keep up with that growth and then maintain student devices. We're very thankful that the community supported us in 2016 and 2019 for one-to-one devices, 6th through 12th grade. COVID hit, became imperative that we had devices from K to 12. We were able to purchase those devices at the lower levels with one-time COVID money or ESSER money. That's one-time money in order to continue to have devices which have now become an essential part of the classroom instruction and also for interventions and for kids at home. We would need this investment. So overall, we're looking at a 42.9 cent ask. There'll be 2 questions on this referendum or on the ballot. The first question will be, are you for or against the 39.9 cent tax increase that supports educator compensation, recruitment, and going back to the other one, educator compensation, safety at schools, operational expenses associated with growth, and maintaining student devices? The second question will be, are you for or against bonding the $66.6 million to build a new middle and high school on the Summit campus and an elementary school on Green Giant Road, which equals a 3 cent increase to taxes? So we took feedback. We went and did town halls after we did not pass the December referendum. We took feedback from the community. We listened. And so we cut back the amount of our ask, 3.1 cent on the operational side and 1 cent on the capital side. So you can see up there the things that we had to reduce the spending in or slow down. And we also, not saying that we didn't need it for it, but we had to make the hard decision because of the feedback removing the bus lot at Alfred G. Waters. What does this referendum get you? Well, it allows us to maintain the high quality world-class education that our students are receiving that gets them college and career ready, ensures the well-being and safety of our schools, create a new learning environment to ensure our schools do not continue to overcrowd, provides a more competitive salary for our staff and teachers to retain and attract the highest quality teachers. And the biggest thing is for our community, great schools significantly impact property value. And I'll say great schools equal great communities, and great communities equal great schools. The immediate impact is that we, in order to get to the 1 month carryover salary we needed for the summer, which is $4.1 million for our district, we needed to cut our expenses by $400,000. We were able to do that by reducing some district office budgets, our school budgets, and making some personnel changes. You might say, well, why did you have to wait till after the referendum? The state allows you, we knew at our preliminary budget that we weren't going to have the carryover that we needed in order to do that. But if you're going to referendum, the state allows you to not have that carryover. So we did not have a successful referendum in December. It required us to then have that show that $4.1 million carryover. The $400,000 though was impactful and is going to reduce opportunities for kids. But if this referendum doesn't pass on April 23rd, it's a significant impact to kids and to what we can offer as a school district. We would have to make $5 million in reductions in order to get to the $4.1 million carryover for July of 2025. You might say, I've heard out there, well, that's just a threat. They're not really going to do it, just a number they made up. So I want to explain, it's not a threat. It's not a number we made up. How do we get to that number? In order to continue operating at the level we're operating right now, just to continue operating, it's $3 million. We need $3 million just to continue to do that, because we showed on that chart how our expenses are outweighing what our revenue is and what we have in our carryover. So we need $3 million just in that. To meet the step requirements we have in our contracts with our employee groups, that's another $1 million. And then to meet the needs of the 300 to 400 students that will be coming in here, I just mentioned tonight we're already 133 over where we got funded at September 30th. We need $1 million to hire that staff on the local side. So that's what gets us to the $5 million. It's not a random number that we just threw a dart at the board to come up with. It's not a threat. Really hope that we do not have to make those cuts and the community sees the need for us to have this support. So on the capital side, it's really cut and dry. there's a process you have to go through. There's a lot of work you have to go through to get your CN approved. We're one of 4 districts that got funding at all, and we received the most funding. We turn that funding back in the state if we do not pass that side of the referendum, and it goes back into the pot and goes to another district, and I don't know where we go into line. It's not a matter of like we can just put our ticket back in line and go back out next year. It's not that simple. On the operational side, the capital side is going to impact kids and teachers because we're not going to have space to put kids, and it's going to impact the operational budget because if we do not have places to put kids, we have to get modulars, and modulars, 100% of that comes out of this operational budget that we're getting ready to cut $5 million out of if we do not pass that side of the referendum. So you're looking at increased class sizes due to staffing, and also we won't have the classrooms to put new teachers in. So we would not fill open positions. We make cuts to existing positions and a reduction in our related arts offerings. As you just saw tonight, we had, 60 kids come in here to receive awards for all state, and we're very proud of our music program. And that's one of the related arts that's offered all the way through elementary through our high schools. Reductions in classroom support, that means fewer support staff in schools, delayed replacement of classroom technology, and elimination of one-to-one devices at the elementary level. Elimination, reduction of after-school activities. So that means elimination of after-school activities at all levels, clubs and things like that. Elimination of middle school sports. Freshman JV sports become fee to pay. Substantial reduction of all budgets. We made reductions in those budgets at 5%. We'd have to go deeper into those budgets, which limits what we can do at schools for kids and things like that. It would also defer maintenance. Now, you might not feel defer maintenance next year. So we defer next year. People may say, oh, well, so what? But defer maintenance at your home and see what happens over time and the impact that it has to it, and see what's happened to defer maintenance in other places in other school districts in the state. Significant changes to the immersion program. We would stop the expansion of immersion, would not go to our high school level, and we reduce the offerings across the district. So what's the impact to you as a homeowner in our district? So you're taxed on assessed value of your home. The assessed value of your home is about a quarter of what the actual market value of your home is. And so the average assessed value in our district is $92,700. If you live in the average home in our district with this referendum, you're looking at about $33 a month. If you're an above average home, you're looking at about $36 a month. And if you're in a well above average home, you're looking at about $45 a month. If you want to know exactly what the impact is to you, you can go to the Newcastle County parcel search and plug in your address, and it will give you the assessed value of your home. If you love doing math, you take the assessed value divided by 100 and multiply it by 0.429, and it will show you exactly what the increase represents to you. If you do not want to do the math, we do have a tax calculator on our website, which I'm going to show you at the end of this presentation. And you could take your assessed value, I stress, take your assessed value, not your market value, and put into the tax calculator, and we'll tell you the impact. If you put in your market value, it's probably going to come up at least 4 times the amount what the tax increase could be. So by law, reassessment is designed to be revenue neutral for the district. So we're currently bringing in $37.2 million. If reassessment happened this year, we would bring in $37.2 million. Now, so that's hard. Like, we have a lot of misinformation out there. It's not a windfall for the district. If we were going to get a windfall and bring in 2 or 3 times or 4 times the amount of what we're bringing in now, I wouldn't be standing up here right now giving you this presentation. We'd be talking about education and the great things we could do for kids. It is designed to be revenue neutral. Now, the individual homeowner, we don't know exactly how it's going to impact you. According to the court order, a third of homeowners are going to pay us slightly more, a third are going to stay the same, and a third are going to go down. But we're not saying what the impact is going to directly have to the homeowner. Please come out to vote April 23rd. Polls open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. In order to vote, your driver's license or state ID must show that you're a citizen of the United States, a resident of the state of Delaware, that you live in the Appoquinimink School District, and you're at least 18 years old or older. If you're unable to come out on the 23rd, you may do an absentee ballot. You can go onto the Delaware Department of Elections website. They can show you how to do an absentee ballot, or you can come to our website, which will link you right into that. You want to start, you can do the process now, and as soon as the ballot's officially confirmed, they'll send it to you. So I advise you, if that's what you're looking to do, please do it as soon as possible. You can vote at any of these locations. It's not like a normal election where you have a assigned location. You can vote at any one of these locations from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on the 23rd. You can only vote one time. That's not one vote per household, because we have people say that. Anyone that's 18 or older in your household may come out and vote and make an educated vote. So what can you do? We heard people say to us, well, my spouse didn't even know about the referendum, or, my family didn't know about the referendum. Well, we need you to be an ambassador. You're going to have more contact with people and have a direct connection with people that we do not have contacts with. So we need you to let them know about it, let your relatives, neighbors, and friends know about the referendum, and let them know what's at stake. Be vocal, share your support on social media. I've seen many people take our district button and have that up on social media. I've seen people supporting us, which we greatly appreciate, on your neighborhood Facebook pages, because we can't be there, on Nextdoor, on the residency page. If you can just please put out the positive message. I'm not asking you to get into fights with people. I'm just asking you to put out the positive and the right information. A lot of great things are happening in our school on a daily basis. Feel free to put any of that out there. Spread awareness. We will have lawn signs coming next week. If you would like one, please let us know. And then, I can't stress this enough, be an advocate for us. Let people know, and make sure your families, everyone in your house that's 18 or over, comes out to vote on the 23rd, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. On our district website, we have a lot of information. You can scan the QR code, which will take you right there, or you can go to apposchooldistrict.com, and the website is there, or you can just type in Appoquinimink, and either the school district or the high school is going to come up. Pick the school district, and it will bring you to all the information you see there. There's we had a lot of myths out there last time, so there's things in there addressing those. Tax impact calculator, polling locations, absentee ballot information, voting requirements, and also all the information I just covered. If you have a question, you can email me directly, or you can also see up there's a referendum at appo.k12.de.us. We will get you an answer to your question.
People can also reach out to their board members, of course. We love hearing from people. We really do.
So what we're asking for is for your support and for a vote for a capital and operational side of the referendum on April 23rd. Thank you. Any questions?
Are there any questions from the board on this report? Can you present it?
Yeah, so we got a question on the yard signs, and anything that says vote for the referendum or support is coming from the Friends of Appoquinimink. It's paid by the Friends of Appoquinimink. It's not paid by district funds. So we have been asked that, and that's one of the myths that's out there at this point, but all those materials are paid for by the Friends of Appoquinimink.
Are there any further questions? Hearing none, thank you very much. Moving on in the agenda, we have a preschool update by a whole team of fabulous people.
Well, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to have us come and talk to you about our preschool programs. We look forward to telling you all about our remarkable growth within the preschool programs, as well as some of the challenges that we're facing. So we do have our team here, and we're going to introduce ourselves. I'm Kim Brancato. I'm the principal of the preschool center.
I'm Tracy Calhoun. I'm the principal of Brick Mill Early Childhood Center.
Christine Colazzo, assistant principal of Brick Mill Early Childhood Center.
And I'm Kara Feeney. I'm the coordinator of pre-K special education services for the district.
So throughout our presentation, we tried to limit the preschool lingo, and everyone knows that every level has their lingo, and of course preschool does too. So if there's any questions or you have any concerns about something, please let us know. Ask us those questions. So when we think about preschool, it is the only age level, grade level that doesn't have a built-in typical student enrollment, meaning that we do not have universal preschool in the state of Delaware. So when we're looking to have an inclusive program, we need to enroll those children. So that is something that we're doing within our programs. But years of research and practice tells us that inclusive practices, children with and without disabilities learning together, is how children with disabilities learn best. So that is a really big goal of our program. And I say this, I know a lot of my friends up here have heard me say this, the nature of being 3 and 4 is that you require a lot of adult support. And then we have children who have special needs, and you need even more additional support to be successful within the school setting. And I say that because I want to tell you a little bit about Appoquinimink Preschool Center. And I sometimes say we're small but mighty, because we have 65 people who work in our building, and those people are part of our Child Find team. Those are the people who are doing, taking the referrals on new students, doing evaluations, and doing IEP meetings for those new students who are enrolled in the district who are eligible for special education. Last year, we did 350 IEP meetings in our building. A lot of Zoom too, so. But we also have our itinerant program, and that is teachers, special education teachers, and therapists who are going out into the community and working with children in the community. And we have many, many families who are benefiting from that, as well as our childcare community. We have 4 RISE classrooms at the Appoquinimink Preschool Center, and those are classrooms for our children with the greatest need in the areas of autism. So we will continue to review some of these regulations, the impacts on our program, as we move forward in our slides. Kara's going to tell you a little bit about this.
Thank you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how our students arrive in our preschool early childhood education program. As Kim mentioned, we are predominantly a special education funded program. And what that means is the vast majority of the students who are attending our preschool programs right now are students who are identified with learning needs. We do have some peers who attend our program to provide those inclusive opportunities, but most of our students are students who have been identified either at age 3 or even before age 3 as having significant needs that require specialized instruction. So I was going to talk a little bit about the 3 ways that students arrive to our programs. These are our first learners in Appoquinimink School District. So if we are able to provide high quality early special education to these students, we are setting a pathway for these students as they continue through our schools from elementary, middle, and high school as well. So the first way that students arrive to early childhood special education is through something called birth mandate. Delaware is a birth mandate state, and what that means is that if a student has been identified anywhere from birth to 3 as having needs in terms of deafness, being hard of hearing, deafblind, blindness, or if they receive an autism diagnosis prior to age 3, they're actually eligible to come into our school-based program before that 3-year-old mark. Families can request early transition. And what we're experiencing is many more families requesting that early transition. And what that means functionally in our programs is that we have students who are younger and younger, well before age 3. And also, as Kim mentioned, they're not just young, they come with many needs. So these students who are eligible for birth mandate come with very complex needs before age 3 that we are having to adjust our programs to support. The next way that students arrive to early childhood special education is through something called birth to 3 transitions. Each county in the state of Delaware has early childhood intervention services for birth to 3, and we have a requirement as a school district to transition students, find them eligible before they are age 3, if they were receiving those birth to 3 services, and then get them into an early childhood special education program before they hit their 3rd birthday. So if we're thinking about birth mandate and we're thinking about birth to 3 transitions, not all students turn 3 at the same time of the year. And so what that means is our programs are truly year round. We've already done more than 70 transition meetings this year for students who were already identified, and looking at our calendars from now to the first day of next school year so that we can meet that mandate to get them in by their 3rd birthday. We have over 40 meetings scheduled already that will continue through the summer, which also includes those workers providing evaluations, observations, doing transition meetings, and then setting new plans for students. The third way that students are identified into early childhood special education is through something called Child Find. And simply that just means that we have a mandate to identify and locate students, whether they're known to us or coming from the community, and who could potentially be eligible for early childhood special education services. So families might refer students, doctors, child care centers. If there's outside providers, they may recommend them as well. The other growth aspect that we're experiencing with this is in the state, there has been a universal developmental screening mandate, meaning that all home daycares, all child care centers must provide families with something called the Ages and Stages questionnaire, which allows us to catch these students in Child Find early. So as those referrals come through, we're seeing more transitions or more initial evaluations, which then have resulted in significantly more students being identified early, which is great. That's the point of Child Find, but then we are left with the need to be able to appropriately service them as well. Okay, sorry.
It's okay. I'm back. The next slide, please. So Kara talked a lot about the regulations, federal and state. And so the first thing that really impacts our program is that we have an indicator, state indicator, that 100% of students who are eligible for special education transition from the birth to 3 program by their 3rd birthday. So they need to be in the program receiving services by their 3rd birthday. And so that is something that we are doing all year long. Children are entering our program really on a daily basis. So then the other really important thing that impacts us is that students who receive services who are 3 to 5, a majority of those services need to be provided in inclusive settings. And the state looks at that saying that it's 50% of the students who have IEPs, 50% who do not. So again, that's a challenge for us as our numbers of students with disabilities are growing, and we have to serve them, but then we have a mandate to ensure that we're also providing those inclusive opportunities. So the next slide talks about that. So this is really a priority that is near and dear to my heart. I have been on our state early childhood inclusion committee for many years. And one of the things that we have developed, it's in your packet, is the inclusion guide. And this inclusion guide talks about the importance of inclusion in early childhood. Also talks about how it is a right of every child. It is the law, but it is also the right that children have access to all the activities, to learning situations, to play environments that their age-appropriate, typically developing peers have. So that is a really important piece of what we do here in preschool.
Thank you. As Dr. Brancato just spoke about the regulations and the priorities of the state, we here in the Appoquinimink School District also have priorities aligned to those. So on the screen, you can see a few of the core values that align with those regulations. And these are developed at each of our locations. So Appoquinimink Preschool Center, Brickmill Early Childhood Center, and the 2 lab schools, Middletown High School and Appoquinimink High School, come together and create what are their core values, again, with a focus on inclusivity.
All right, so I get to take you through preschool throughout the years. So I've had the privilege of being in early childhood in the Appoquinimink School District for over 20 years. So when I started here, I began as a preschool teacher. And so that's kind of where we're taking some information from. So we went back to 2000. So when our preschool program was just beginning, we had 2 classrooms total to serve the district that were at it was Appoquinimink Early Childhood Center at the time, which is now our preschool center. That was our standalone kindergarten and preschool building and only having 2 classrooms. At that time, we had multi-age classrooms, so our 3 and 4-year-olds were together, and they were half-day programs, and students attended 2 to 3 times a week. Move ahead to 2013. At that time, our program was still that multi-age half day, but we had 7 classrooms. We split them because we continued to grow. So we had classrooms at Spring Meadow Early Childhood Center, Townsend Early Childhood Center, and at Cedar Lane Early Childhood Center. What you will see is at that time when we're talking about that 50% of this inclusive setting, we were only able to serve about 2 peers in classrooms and 5 peers in classrooms because we just didn't have the space. Jump ahead to 2024, which is now, seeing the commitment and dedication to early childhood from our district. You can see we're now serving 315 students alone at Appoquinimink Preschool Center and at Brick Mill Early Childhood Center. We still have half-day programs for our 3-year-olds, but we have full-day programs for our 4-year-olds. In addition to that, we have our 2 lab schools where we're serving 27 students from our community. In those inclusive opportunities, we have 86 students that do not have identified needs that are our peers that are in our program. And then Kim spoke about those teachers and related service providers that are going out into the community to support the MOT area. And we're serving 70 students in that way. So that means that we are impacting 22 childcare centers throughout our area.
Can we pause for just a few clarifying
Sure.
questions? So the 50% inclusion that you spoke, was it you, Mrs. Feeney, that you spoke of? How does that work? Is it like the overall match for the school, or is it the overall match for the classroom? So like, how do you balance that? Yeah, whomever.
No, so it's the overall population per program. And so one of the ways we're measured on our performance by the state is an indicator that looks at what percentage of students are receiving the majority of their instruction with typical peers.
Okay.
And so one of those marks is that we need to have the vast majority of students in that LREA, the learning least restrictive environment of A. And that first indicator is looking at what percentage of our students are actually receiving an education with students who are not identified.
Okay, so the overall program is the 50%
Yes.
match. And can you tell me a little bit more about the going into the community support piece? I'm intrigued by that. I think you mentioned it.
Kim, do you want to talk about
Yeah, please.
So when I first got here, one of my biggest goals was there was Dr. Barrow's going to laugh at me, but there was many. But one of mine was to make sure that we were meeting the needs of children in inclusive settings. And many children benefit from staying where they are. As you see, the half-day program is not, because it's a 2-hour program. So if a child's already in childcare, we're pulling them out of their program for 2 hours, bringing them to our program. And sometimes that's not the best for young children. You know, they already have some difficulty to transition and things. The other thing is the impact you make on the childcare center. So the child's with us 8 or 10 hours a week, and they may be in childcare for 40, 50 hours a week. So when we're going out into that program, it's early childhood special ed teachers, and then we do have related services, speech therapists, occupational therapists. They're working with the child in that classroom. The teachers are remarkable. They are consulting with the staff weekly. So they'll meet when the children are napping, they have their little meetings, but they're also providing services within the classroom. So they run a group for them. They do story time. I had a teacher today brought in like a stack this big of the visuals she was going to bring in to help support her student in the classroom. So that's a really important piece of what we're doing for our community as well as our students, because many of them are very successful out in that setting.
Absolutely.
Does that answer? Okay.
It does. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
So on this graphic, we can take a look at from 2020 all the way until the current time, our enrollment as it has increased for students with disabilities. So you can see the number of 177 students. That's the mark before Brick Mill Early Childhood Center had opened. So then you can kind of see across time. And then most recently, Dr. Burrows spoke about the increase of just this year since September 30th. We can see an enrollment just since September 30th count of this particular school year that we have had an increase of more than 30 students now. So as was mentioned earlier, our enrollment is rolling. This is the time when throughout the year and throughout the summer, it continues that we enroll our students here.
I think we had 2 this week.
Yes, yes. And so as we keep talking about inclusive opportunities, we also are a program for our community, right? So if we have students who are identified, we identify the best way for them to receive services. Maybe they come into our program, maybe they're part-time, like Dr. Mercado said, where they're in our 3s, but they're also at home or in childcare during the day as well. And then we also have some who we push out to for itinerant services like we described. The other really important part of our program is the community aspect, where we have members of our community expressing interest every year to be a part of our preschool programs. We just finished our preschool interest application. It closed at midnight last night. And this graph shows us the change in interest that we've seen over the last 3 years. We saw a really marginal difference between 2022 and 2023 of just a handful more people from the public saying, I want my child to come to Appoquinimink preschools. As you can see, between 2023 to now, we have a substantial difference. This is well over, almost 30% more people have expressed interest in attending our program as a community peer. And again, that's attending either at Appoquinimink Preschool Center, Brick Mill Early Childhood, or our 2 lab schools at Middletown or Appoquinimink High School. The demand is here, and this speaks to how strongly our community feels about our program, and it also shows the opportunity that's out there for us to find identified students or non-identified students to join our program, to be models, to have the opportunity to learn alongside with their peers.
All right, so how can you support? So what we need from you is just the support for advocacy and space. So what we wanted you to be aware of is first to just be informed of the growing that is happening in our preschool program, and knowing that there is no universal preschool and that the need is out there. So knowing that over 560 families are looking for that quality early childhood center, that care, that education, we wanted you to just be aware of that. Capital projects for preschool are locally funded. So we don't have, a lot of school districts have open space where they can have preschool classrooms be, but we truly, for the fastest growing school district, we don't have the space to continue to expand, but the need is there. So we need space in order to have those inclusive opportunities for our preschool students and maintain those ratios to support the needs that we are seeing as they come. And then obviously just to be responsive to our community needs. We are all very passionate, as we are with great company up front here, for early childhood education. So would just love the continued conversation of anything we can do to support.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, thank you very much. Thank you. On the agenda, our next report will be a construction update. Mr. Hopkins, nice to see you, sir.
Thank you. All right, Lewis Reading. You're starting to move along out there a little better now. We'll get the overview from this. You kind of see here that the slab on grade is all the way down past the gym now. We're all tied in. The stairs are up. Stairs are going in relatively soon. They're all made. They just haven't been put in the towers themselves. We've got roof deck on here. The roof should start probably early April timeline. The envelope of the building starting to go around with metal studs. We're coming through this way and wrapping the building back. This around here has masonry, which you'll see in some of the other pictures, which is around the kitchen area and the mechanical spaces now to allow all the mechanicals to start going in the building. Good, Steve. As you can see, this is around the back. This is your kitchen area here and your auditorium. This is the envelope that's starting to go around the band rooms. The auditorium fly space is all up here. Kitchen is on that side. Good, Steve. Just an envelope from the side looking out from New Street coming across. They're going to start pushing this way, and then they'll start the interior walls as we start pouring concrete on the second level deck. Steve? This is the area that'll get decked next. The second floor will start in. They'll deck that out. We'll start pouring concrete for all the additional work so we can start working underneath of it. Looking back from Lake, going that way, it's a really long building, but it heads across from the gymnasium on this side, back into the classroom wing, and all the way to the auditorium and cafeteria on the far side. A little more of a look, you're coming about halfway across. This is the central staircase. So we're pushing everything this way, working the classroom wing. We'll start bringing the walls up as we're coming across. We're not going to go across all and just then start. This will start in here with all the interior walls and decking coming on. That's pretty much where we are right now. We are on budget. We're on time. Weather impacts are there, but we're maintaining. Any questions?
Hearing none. Thank you very much. The next agenda item is board comments. Is there someone who would like to go first? Mr. Abrams.
First, I'd like to thank Keith. Went out for a couple school visits. I was out at Crystal Run Elementary for Principal Don Davis. Thank you for answering some questions on our walkthrough. From Crystal Run, we went to Reading Middle, and I did not get into the building. Basically, was just looking at the construction side. So from Whiting Turner, I want to thank Dom, Josh, and Paul. Also like to take a special moment to thank all the parents who are volunteering in our community for the betterment of our district. And as you already know from Dr. Burrow's presentation, our referendum is coming up. Please be informed, please know the facts, understand the facts, and please vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll go second. I would like to thank everyone, all the teachers that held parent-teacher conference over the last week. I want to thank Ms. Wanamaker for putting together different parents to come in and bring food and drinks like that, as we know that that's a long day for our teachers. So thank you for just being there and providing that performance information that we all need. I know I need it. I have a senior who has senioritis, so trying to get her to stay on task has been very difficult. I also want to thank our community partners who have gone into our schools over the past month to just read to our students. I know Alpha Alpha Tau Omega was in a couple schools, as well as other community partners. So thank you for just being there for our children. And two more updates. Mr. Billings is having a strawberry fundraiser. I just want to thank him for all his support. All the kids that went to the FFA conference who were given their jackets and officer placements. So just want to thank him for the good work that he's doing. And don't forget your strawberries if you haven't picked them up already. And lastly, this is a time that we have students who observe certain things between March 10th and 4/9, which is Ramadan. So I want everyone to be mindful that these students will be tired, they'll be hungry and thirsty, especially in the afternoon. So just be mindful of that as they celebrate or plan for that observance. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Graham?
Yeah, I guess I'll go next. I just want to reiterate the importance of the referendum. Of course, we've been talking about it. Some may feel ad nauseum, but I think Matt's presentation tonight about what's at risk on the slides, the two that I actually wrote down and want to just emphasize are the increased class sizes and reduction in classroom support. And from a special needs perspective, that is pretty significant. I think about my own student in his settings and how he benefits from those breakout times and being able to engage with the support in the classroom, which definitely makes a difference. And then coupled with the preschool update that we just heard, I think that a few of those slides are quite convincing. Matt, might want to add them to your presentation, but they were quite convincing. And so I thank you all for that early intervention. I think most of you know that one of my top priorities is the special education arena. And so for that reason alone, all things are important, but for that reason alone, in an attempt to support our children in every aspect, we really need to get behind our referendum. And then secondly, just to reiterate Ms. Dewitt's comments, I do want to just thank the teachers that did hold their conferences. And of course, I always have to give a special shout out to Old State under Mr. Early's leadership, as that's where, my little guy is, my otter is. And so I thank you all, not leaving anyone out. I thank you all for your commitment to our students. And I just ask the community to demonstrate their commitment to our educators by voting yes next month for our referendum. Thank you.
Mr. Forster.
Excuse me. I'll just say one quick or two quick words, maybe three. I can never say anything in less than 3 words. But on the topic of the referendum, obviously you all saw the presentation for a variety of reasons. I find it very compelling. And I want to emphasize again that, all of us here on the board, in addition to Matt and other people in the district, we're out in the community, we're making presentations. My email address is on the website. I've had people call me at the office, which is fine. I invite that. I'm happy to talk to anybody about these issues. I've gotten email questions. I've answered those. One thing that strikes me as I've been out in the community making the presentation is that, those people who tell me, well, I'm just a hard no. Okay, but what's your plan if this referendum fails? They don't have one. In fact, they're not necessarily persuaded that we need a plan. And so I just say to those people, what's your plan if this fails? It shouldn't fail, it should pass. But what's your plan? The kids are coming, right? I mean, we could not get the approval for these schools from the state Department of Education. They've done the analysis. We'd already done the analysis. That's why we applied for it. The kids are coming. These 3 schools were getting, at, I'll say, a bargain rate if we pass this referendum. Those 3 schools will have a capacity for almost 3,000 kids, 2,800 kids at full capacity, I think, right around there, because that's a high school, a middle school, and an elementary school. Where do we put them if we don't have the schools to put them in? And so we've heard about larger class sizes. I mean, that's what we all have to do. You've heard about trailers. That's what we'd have to do. And by the way, those modular trailers, we have to pay for out of our operating funds. They're not inexpensive. And we end up in the long run spending more money and having less money to spend on teachers and students and curriculum and everything else if we don't get those schools built. I mean, to me, that's an absolute no-brainer. But when people say, well, I'm just not going to vote for it, okay, what's the alternative? Because the alternative is far worse. And that's the choice people have on the capital referendum. And then on the operating side, it's the same thing. Again, if you remember the numbers, I mean, we have the smallest assessment base. You've heard us say that if you've watched any of our meetings, probably for the last year, it comes up. We have the lowest operating tax rate. We bring in the lowest amount of money. If folks lived in any other district in Newcastle County, they'd have already be paying far more in property taxes than they do here, and they'd have been doing that for years. Those rates, even if this referendum passes, our rate will still be lower than any of the other rates in Newcastle County. Someone said, well, I don't want to hear about the other districts in Newcastle County. I want to talk about Appo. Well, all I can tell you is, if you're trying to figure out the value of your own home, what do appraisers do? They look at the value of the houses in the area right around you. You might think your house is worth $1 million, but if all the other houses in your neighborhood are only worth $500,000, you're probably not going to get $1 million. But if you sold it for $100,000, I mean, people would be lined up around the block. So when we talk about the other districts in Newcastle County, our peers, there's a reason that we cite to them, because they're the comparison I think that folks have to compare themselves to. And we talked about the fact that if we don't pass the operating referendum, those cuts are real, $5 billion. Yet what we didn't talk about was the fact we're also going to have to spend money on trailers and everything else. So it gets even worse longer term. Again, what I would say to folks who just say they're hard no is, okay, what are you going to do instead? What's your plan for this district if this referendum doesn't pass? And my people email me. Contact me on Facebook and let me know what your plan is, because I'll take a look at it, because I don't know what the plan should be. It ain't pretty. So the referendum is coming up April 23rd. We'll have another school board meeting, a full school board meeting before then. We'll talk about it more. We'll be out in the community. Feel free to reach out to me or others with any questions or ideas. Thank you.
I agree wholeheartedly. Reach out to us if you have questions. I mean, I feel like the district's at a crossroads. It's too important not to support. Monthly, I've always held bagels with a board member since I ran for school board 9 years ago. This month, though, I'm not. So we'll return in April. I've had the opportunity this month to see great things in our schools. I echo off of Nichelle's comments. The FFA state convention was last week, and I had an opportunity to attend, and all three of our schools had a tremendous showing of kids across many different competitions, earning of state degrees, proficiency awards. It's just really incredible what those three programs do at all three of our high schools. I also had the opportunity to attend the Pro Start competition, which features both culinary students, both in a cooking competition as well as a restaurant management idea concept competition. I'm very excited to share with you that Odessa High School has a team who is your state champions. So moving on to the national convention to represent Odessa High School. It's pretty awesome. Over the weekend, this weekend and last weekend, I had the opportunity to attend the musical at Odessa High School. I have to say, it was amazing. It's really cool to see what kids can accomplish in 9 weeks together. Over 60 kids comprise the cast, the crew, some kids in the pit, costumes, scenery. It was really incredible. This weekend, you have an opportunity to support the arts in your community. Middletown's musical will be on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Tickets are available. I think there's a link on the district website. So get out and see kids doing great things. I have no further comments. Anyone else? Again, I'll echo the comments too of Mr. Abrams. Thanks to all of our parents who are currently serving on committees, including all of those who are supporting the referendum. Oh, the next referendum presentation is this Thursday night at Brick Mill Early Childhood Center. It begins at 6 o'clock. So that is the next one. There is a list of all of the upcoming ones on the district website. So please, join us for another referendum presentation. Thank you very much. Moving on in the agenda, we are going to go to old business, the school calendar 2024-2025. Dr. Feathers and Mr. Hoover, nice to see you.
Good evening. Nice to see all of you. I'm Rebecca Feathers. I'm the Director of Elementary Curriculum. And this is Nick Hoover, and he's the Director of Secondary Curriculum. We're here tonight to talk to you about the calendar proposal, and we're going to go through our presentation here. So just a reminder, we do have a committee, and our folks are all listed there. We thank them for their service. And our committee operates under guided values, and they are listed here. And last month we met in February, and then we reopened public comment. We received public comments, the committee reconvened, we reviewed comments and made some revisions. We're going to share them with you tonight. And following the February meeting, we did receive 205 responses on our survey. Thanks to everybody who commented. All right, so if we take a look at the calendar, we'll go through any revisions that were made since our last meeting. So in August, it's just noted on the 30th, we added that schools are closed and offices are opened. That's not a change. It's just something we simply didn't have on the last calendar, so we did update that. In September, there were no changes.
I just want to say that I noticed in reviewing it recently tonight that in September, there's no board meeting listed. So at some point, we need to add a school board meeting to the September calendar. I believe it would normally be September the 10th, but there's no school, and being that that's an election day, I'm not sure if we'll have to move it to the 17th.
We'll look into that
It's
and
not
we'll get it right
noted.
on there.
I mean, we could take a month off, but I feel like that probably isn't the best idea.
Thank you. We will address that. All right. In October, we did receive the date for our PSATs, so we simply added that to the 16th, and that's for our 9, 10, and 11th grade students, and that will be an asynchronous day for our grade 12 students. In November, there were no changes. In December, there were no changes. In January, we just made a slight adjustment. So the events that were listed on January 29th, 30th, and 31st have simply been moved back to the 23rd, 24th, and 27th. So the events are the same. We just pushed them back a little bit. We noted that our marking periods were a little uneven and we wanted to balance them out a little bit better. So the shift back allowed us to take some days away from marking period 2, add some days to marking period 3, and balance them out. In February, there's no changes. In March, we received the SAT date, so we simply added that on the 19th for our grade 9, 10, and 11 students. And that once again will be the asynchronous day for our 12th grade students only. And then we made a little bit of a shift. So the 28th will be a full professional learning day and it's an asynchronous day for our grade 12 students only. And then the 31st will be a full grading day for our staff. In April, there were no changes, but just to note, we have a little note at the top that we still need to determine our AP exam dates, which could occur in April or May. So those will be coming for us to add to the calendar. And May, no changes. And once again, it's just noted if we're going to have AP exams, we will add them to the calendar. In June, just a slight adjustment. The last student day for K-11 was scheduled for June 11th. We shifted it one day because of the March Professional Learning Day that was added. And so the students will, their last day will be on the 12th. And then one thing missing from the calendar was weather contingency days. So we did add those, the 13th for our students and the 17th for our staff. July, no changes. August, no changes. And September, no changes. We'll take questions from the board.
Why did you take March 28th, which originally I guess was going to be no school for any grades, and just make that an asynchronous day for grade 12? And why an asynchronous day?
There's a longer story to that, but we added a professional learning day in there that wasn't originally there. We had a staff grading day, a half staff grading day and a half professional learning day. What we decided to do was, in discussion with our committee, in the contract, it states that the minimum is that we're going to do one half grading day at the end of the marking periods, 1, 2, and 3. But if we can try our best to get a full grading day, we can do that. So part of that compromise was to say, well, if we're going to do a full grading day, which, you know, Steph, it's great for teachers. If we can do a full grading day, we can do that. But we also didn't want to lose professional learning. So we added a professional learning day in there, which wasn't on the original calendar. And again, the 12th graders are the only ones that would be asynchronous, so they can work on their work-based learning, their capstone and their work-based learning.
I have a question on August of 2025. The school board meeting's listed on the 3rd Tuesday. It should be the 2nd Tuesday.
I'll make that note too.
Thank you.
If I recall from last
month, there was a question on the table about whether or not to extend the winter break as opposed to adding the days on in June. And so are we saying that with this calendar, and I was just perusing these comments, that we're going to hold and ensure that the students come back on the 2nd in January, 2nd and the 3rd, and then end sooner in June? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, so what we were discussing was if we don't have those days in January, the 2nd and 3rd, we'd have to add them to the end of the year. So
And we're saying we're not going to do
we're
that.
not doing that. Right, exactly. Again, long discussion and lots of feedback, but decided to stick with this.
Okay.
Yep. And I'm sorry, Ms. Wall, did you say September 25?
August of 25?
August, sorry.
You're okay.
I see it.
Thank you. It's probably just a typo from the monthly.
On the off chance that the parents that submitted questions are actually listening, and we do read each and every one of these comments, just so they know. There was a recurring theme through these, so if you don't mind, could I, if anybody were listening, they're straight, they're really simple.
Yeah.
Was the recurring theme was, what are the requirements during an asynchronous day for the students? Expectations, and vice versa. What are they of the teacher? There's probably 50 to 75 of those comments in this. I'm sure you've said it before, but if somebody were to be watching, what would you say to them?
Well, the first thing I would say is that isn't determined by the calendar committee, but since it's kind of determined by our office, what I would say is, first off, just a reminder that anything in this calendar is 12th grade async only. So that's number one, which I think is important for everybody just to remember, because it's not a kindergartner or a first grader. This is 12th grade only. The requirements that we would put in place for our 12th graders, so we used to actually have a capstone day where students would work on their capstone. We also recognize that the capstone day wasn't like the only day that they worked on a capstone. It takes work. Many times it's outside of school. Also, work-based learning hours happens outside of school. So we would put up, what we did this year was we worked with a group of people, came up with what the criteria would be for our staff, what does that look like for students, and then we communicated that out. We would do the same thing. In this case, we're only talking about 12th graders, so of course that would be communicated with our 12th grade families, our 12th grade teachers, and what those requirements would be for those students during that time. So I can't really answer that right in this minute because I don't have it.
All right, so then let me expand, because they also talked about the snow days becoming asynchronous days. So address that, like on those days, what are the expectations? Is attendance being taken, lessons being done? That just seemed to be a recurring theme as parents didn't understand what their role was that day.
Yep. So on weather days, this current year, if that's what we're doing next year, it would probably look something similar. We kind of lay out what those days look like. What does the first day look like? What does the second day? What does the third day? Communicate that out to people ahead of time so that they're aware. And then, yes, it's a working day for teachers to either prepare the lessons, present the lessons asynchronously, synchronously, whatever day that is calling for. And then, yeah, students are required to get that work done. There's an attendance piece that comes along with that because we do have to take attendance for any day that's going to count as a school day. Yep.
So just, piggyback on that, that's also communicated. We communicate that through the district newsletter, and then it's also communicated in the principal's letter as well. So there's multiple communication pieces that go out to parents in regards to the expectations and on all sides. Yeah.
In this batch about that, that's all.
Sure.
As we also found through the referendum, that there's multiple forms of communication that we have to use because not everybody's reading what we send home, even though it's very high quality stuff and important.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Hearing none, is there a motion?
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve the calendar for the 2024-2025 school year as presented.
Second.
All Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? I have a motion from Mr. Mr. Forston, a second from Ms. DeWitt to approve the calendar for 2024, 2025. Hearing none, all those in favor vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Moving on the agenda, we will start with new business items. The first new business item is the February 6, 2024 Board of Education meeting minutes for approval.
Madam President, it was a long time ago, 5 weeks, but I make a motion that we approve the February 6, 2024 Board of Education meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Forston and a second by Ms. DeWitt to approve the February 6, 2024 Board of Education meeting minutes as presented. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next agenda item is an excess parcel public notice for approval. Dr. Burrows.
So at the end of February, we had a board meeting where we took, well, prior to that, we put out notice that we had an excess parcel piece of land. If you look at the Summit campus, there's a house that sits on the right-hand side of the Summit campus that we have a little parcel that goes on the one side of it, and then all of our land surrounds it all on the other side. It's a private parcel of land that someone else owns. We have excess land around that of 1.75 acres. We put that out on the market to take proposals. We had one proposal come in from Save Ray Properties, and we're asking for a approval of that proposal.
Is there a motion?
So I just want to make sure I'm clear, because this is one of the most inefficient, lengthy processes that the state has, and they've got a lot. On the agenda tonight, we have listed this as ad approval, I think, right?
Excess parcel public notice of approval.
Right. So public notice of approval, we're approving the language for the legal notice then that goes in the paper, or what are
No.
we approving?
That's already been approved. That's already run. It's
Okay.
required time frame.
Okay.
We're approving to accept the proposal that was submitted.
Okay.
And start the next process.
So we received only one submission. It was for a number that we think is a good number, but that number will be tested because we have to get appraisals. And so I will move that we accept the offer and proceed to the next step in this excess land process.
Second.
I have a motion to approve the next step of the excess parcel process by Mr. Forston and a second by Ms. DeWitt. Are there any additional questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of this moving forward, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion carries. The next agenda item will be the monthly financial report for approval. Mr. Loftus.
So the Financial Advisory Committee met on March 5th to review the January revenue and expenditure report, and they recommended approval of that report at that time.
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve the monthly financial report for January 2024 as presented and as recommended by the Financial Advisory Committee.
I have a motion by Mr. Forston and a second by Mr. Abrams to approve the monthly financial report as presented and as recommended by the Financial Advisory Committee. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next agenda item is the internal accounts report for approval. Mr. Loftus.
Financial Advisory Committee also reviewed the January internal accounts report and recommended approval of that report as well.
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve the internal accounts report for January 2024 as presented and as recommended by the Financial Advisory Committee.
I have a motion by Mr. Forston, a second by Mr. Abrams to approve the internal accounts report as presented and as recommended by the Financial Advisory Committee. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the overnight field trips for approval.
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve 3 overnight trips for approval. Trip ID 9380, which is the preliminary, which already had preliminary approval in 2023. This will be March 2024, later this month, the Reading Middle School students to visit Paris and the Riviera for international immersion education over spring break. So we already gave tentative approval. This is final approval for that. Trip ID 9390, again, preliminary approval had been granted last year. This is again for later this month. AG Water students to visit Quebec to learn about the French language and culture of Quebec. And finally, trip ID 9830, again for later this month, March 2024. Appoquinimink High School indoor percussion competition at the Toms River North High School.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Forston and a second by Mr. Abrams to approve the overnight field trips as presented. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next agenda item, so under new business, we had construction contracts and change orders. Mr. Hopkins.
Construction contracts, I have 2 recommended for approval as submitted. One is for 05B miscellaneous metals and 07E for fire stopping for Lewis Reading Elementary or Middle. We're seeking approval for those contracts as submitted.
Is there a motion for the contracts?
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve the contracts as presented and as recommended by our head of construction. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Forston and a second by Mr. Abrams to approve the construction contracts as recommended by Mr. Hopkins. Any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion?
I waited till the motion was made, but these 2 contracts are in line with our estimates, correct?
They are.
Yes, okay.
Yep, they're in budget.
All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Norm didn't vote.
Are you in a yay?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay. Moving on, change orders.
There's some contractors or some change orders we're seeking for approval as submitted, basically design change items. Some plumbing fixtures got upgraded. We did some feeder size upgrades for electrical wire. We're seeking approval for these change orders as submitted.
Is there a motion for the change orders?
I'll make a motion that we approve the change orders as presented and as recommended by our head of construction.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Forston and a second by Ms. DeWitt to approve the change orders as presented by Mr. Hopkins. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on these change orders?
Just one question. The change orders are within budget and within our contingencies, correct?
Yes, they are. Yes. They're all pretty minor.
Yeah. Just want to make sure that it's on the record.
Yeah, we're watching it.
Any additional questions? All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Hopkins. Under new business, item number H, we are tabling that until next meeting, and I apologize that that was not addressed when we did the adjustments of the agenda. So the next item on the agenda is the personnel report. Dr. Small.
Just a reminder that we're pulling 2 items out of the personnel report. We have board action on employee 232400003 and board action on employee 232400004.
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve the personnel report as presented with those 2 particular items that Dr. Burrows just referenced being pulled from the report for a separate consideration after voting on the balance of the report.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Forson, second by Mr. Witt to approve the personnel report as presented minus those two personnel action items. Dr. Small, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I think I'm good to go.
Are there any additional questions, comments, or concerns? All those in favor of that motion by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now,
All right. The
Dr. Small.
recommendation for board action on employee associated with personnel item 23240003 has been presented for your review. We're asking for your approval of the recommendation.
Do we want to say what that recommendation is on the record, for the record?
We don't normally.
No? Okay. Madam President, this is a personnel report that we discussed in executive session, as we're allowed to do. I make a motion that we adopt the recommendation regarding employee 23240003.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Forson and a second by Ms. Graham, excuse me, to move forward with the recommended personnel action on employee 23240003. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Abstain.
Motion carries. Moving on to the next agenda item.
The recommendation for board action on employee associated with personnel item 23240004 has been presented for your review. We are asking for approval of the recommendation.
Is there a motion?
Madam President, again, we discussed this item in executive session since it is a personnel matter, as we are allowed to do under the Freedom of Information Act. I make a motion that we adopt the recommendation as presented to us on employee 23240004.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Forson, a second by Mr. Abrams to move forward on the recommended action on employee 23240004. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on the motion? This is when I need my glasses. Hearing none, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Abstain.
Motion carries. Thank you very much, Dr. Small. Moving along in the agenda, this is the establishment of the upcoming meeting dates. Get ready because there's quite a few. On March 21st, we will be here in the boardroom at 7 o'clock for a candidate forum for those who are running for the Appoquinimink School Board. The next Financial Advisory Committee is scheduled for Tuesday, March 26, 2024 at 6 o'clock in the Finance Conference Room of the Tony Marcio Building. The next regular Board of Education meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, April 9th at 7 o'clock in this boardroom. Then there will be a Board of Education workshop on Tuesday, April 23rd at 7 o'clock in the boardroom to share unofficial referendum results. As I said, Tuesday, April 23rd is the referendum. We will be here and we hope to see you too. I think that's all that we have for tonight. Thank you for joining us both in the room and on Zoom. As always, good night.